Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran who cannot believe that there is a virtual model of your 1965 Fender Princeton amplifier, or else a scrappy upstart who cannot believe that there is an actual physical amplifier that corresponds to your software, this is your show. Because ultimately, it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, it's the last Friday of April 2021, and I thank you for joining us. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made, and it would always be some guy named Hugo who drove a Kia Sorento with expired tags and a fiberglass spoiler, and who was always trying to sell you Camel Turkish golds that he had parceled out into individual sandwich bags. And old Hugo would charge you about $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months. But it's the future now, you guys. That's not how it works anymore. We're allowed to have nice things now. One of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in. Hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates, tools to sell your music and merch, commission-free. It's a wonderful product. Listeners to the Working Songwriter podcast can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days. You use the promo code TWS, the initials of our show, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the coming weeks, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm over on YouTube for Sunday Songs. Sunday Songs is a live stream. I'm live, man. I'm playing tunes. I'm taking questions in the live chat. I'm taking requests in the live chat. It's become a really fun, really interactive experience. I'd like to say that we're building something of a community over there, including many people who are listeners to this podcast. So come on over, be a part of it, every single Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern over on YouTube. Head to YouTube and search for Joe Pug, or go to joepugmusic.com and click on the live stream tab. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here's a couple things that you could do to help. First, you could become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to directly support creative endeavors that you find meaningful. You just head to their site, Patreon. You search for The Working Songwriter, or you search for my name, and then you sign up to kick in a few bucks every month for the show. Think of it as a voluntary subscription, a subscription that you don't have to pay, but that you choose to pay because you dig the show and you won't miss a few bucks at the end of the month. If just 1% of our listenership would kick in the price of a cup of coffee every month, it would make an immense difference. So thank you to everybody who's taken the time to do that. And if you're not in a place to do that financially, I totally get it. I've been there before, man. You could still help out the show by helping us out with a couple of free things. First, you could leave us a rating in the iTunes store. Or second, you could just tell a friend about the show. You could spread the word. The simple math on those two things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. Okay, I'll end all the harassment there. I know that Cary and Michael are very busy with work and young kids at home, so I'm grateful to them for taking the time to be on our show, and I think you're going to dig hearing about how they've made a life in music. Our guests this week are a married couple whose paths in the music business aligned after initial forays on their own. Michael Trent spent the early 2000s playing with his indie rock band, The Films, and Cary Hearst spent the same time building a regional following in Charleston, South Carolina, but it wasn't until they joined forces as the band Shovels and Rope that they took to the national stage. They've performed at Bonnaroo, Outside Lands, and the Newport Folk Festival. They've toured with Jason Isbell, Brandi Carlile, Frank Turner, the Decemberists, and many others. They've recorded for Dual Tone, New West, and Dynalone Records. They've appeared on Late Night with David Letterman, Conan, and the late, great Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. They also host their own music festival, High Water Fest in Charleston, which features nationally recognized headliners and draws 10,000 music listeners annually. NPR notes of the band that since their inception, they have captivated fans with a no-frills take on punk-influenced roots music and joyful, revelatory live performances. The Associated Press has said of them, "Times may be changing, but Shovels and Rope prove that folk themes still have a place." And Rolling Stone has called them a distinctive force in roots music. I got a chance recently to catch up with them on the phone and hear about their journey so far. Michael Trent and Cary Hearst, better known as Shovels and Rope, thank you so much for joining the Working Songwriter Podcast. Before you guys were playing together, you both had notable solo ventures of your own. I know that because my wife lived in Charleston in the early 2000s, Cary Ann, and she was a big fan of yours. She would go to see you play then. And I know, Michael, you were in New York City doing some work with a band. Can you guys kind of tell our listeners what your kind of proto-careers looked like before your group together?
I was in a band with some guys from high school. We thought we were better than we were, and but we did have we had a little bit of success. We stayed together and we worked really hard at it, kind of got better. We got a deal, major label, Nightmare Story, signed and dropped, and that whole thing took about 10 years, I guess. And we made 2 records, and then I made a couple of solo records, just by myself, kind of home recording. And that's around the time when Cary and I met up.
I don't want to trigger...
I was in Charleston. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I don't want to trigger any latent PTSD here, but could you tell me what was the nightmarish part about those deals that you had with that original group?
It's always there. You don't have to trigger it. I feel like I just, I live alongside of it. It was just one of those things where, we probably got signed because there was a band that was already signed that we maybe sort of sounded like, and they wanted to just sign us to make sure that nobody else would sign us, and then never put our record out.
That's a different level of money.
As they do.
I remember Michael telling me the story where they went up to New York and had to go meet with Warner Brothers and their hot shit A&R guy, and basically the A&R guy, who will remain nameless, was had a very illustrious career, and he was hot shit, and they were really excited to sign. And then he was basically you need to go out and make yourself famous without any help from us. You guys aren't doing enough to make yourself famous, even though you're literally living on the road and eating, living hand to mouth. And also all these 90 people that are sitting in the office, playing on the computer and trying to screw people in the office, and they're getting paid, are not doing their job at all to help you get famous. So enjoy never having a career with the band.
I'm sure, I'm sure there were good people there, and I'm sure that they, but it was like at the tail. It was when the
Great consolidation.
It was when everything was kind of crumbling. When like the major label music business, streaming was probably just starting to happen, and labels didn't know what to do, and we got in right at the perfect time.
And in fairness, it's very time consuming when you have an office where everyone's trying to screw one another. So, kind of give them some credit there.
Totally.
I'm totally projecting like what my idea of major label New York offices in the early 2000s were.
I'm sure how we like remember it now is quite different than what it was like. I just remember, it seemed like a bunch of young kids throwing darts, and there was like, standing on the tables. And
I didn't know what a business manager was. All I knew is you had a business manager, and the money that you would earn was in an account you didn't have any access to. And I was like,
I don't know.
This son of a bitch has got the money.
Bernie.
Who's this Bernie? And why does he have your money?
That's amazing. Yeah, when
All the money you didn't make.
When I think of A&R guys from that era, in my mind's eye, I just see Rob Lowe from Wayne's World.
It's kind of spot on. It is spot on. I don't know. It was a very strange world. I don't know if you ever like did showcases and things like that, but like, did you ever have to do a showcase like at?
I did a thing
SIR
where at Joe's Pub. We went and played at Joe's Pub, which is part of the Public Theater in Manhattan, and it was filled with people, and that were all record people. And when I finished, I got off stage, and then a couple months later, it's the only time in my life that I've gotten a bill for a show rather than a check. They sent me a bill for a couple $1,000.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, yeah, it's brutal. It was brutal. I'm glad it's a different time now. I remember, getting flown out. I'm sure in hindsight we were flying ourselves out and buying the food and everything. But we did a showcase. My old band. We did a showcase in front of, I forget who it was. It was like Sony or something. And you go in and you get on a stage, and it's in a small room, and there's like 4 chairs facing the stage. And right behind those chairs, the whole wall is a mirror. And so, like, you get on, we had our pointy shoes and our tight pants, and we were, feeling good. And, but you go into this thing, and it's like this can hall or something, and the manager is like, just do it. Just rock it, man. Just like
do what you guys do.
Just do what you would do at like a normal show.
We're doing better than you usually do.
But
make sure you bring your A game. But don't force it. Just play it cool. But don't play it cool.
You can always check your look in the massive mirror that's right in front of you. If you don't feel like looking at one of the judges.
The judges. And so Cary Ann, was your career before Shovels and Rope, was that a bit different from this same experience that Michael is talking about, or was it kind of a similar type vibe?
Couldn't be more different.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I came to Charleston, South Carolina as a college student, and I grew up in Nashville until I kind of came up in like songwriter culture or whatever, a bunch of music road rats. And but we, when I came to college, I knew I wanted to be a songwriter, but I've never been disciplined. I've never been particularly ambitious. And so I just had a really cool, I had bar gigs in town. I had a good little thing going. I've always been kind of like a big fish in a small pond in Charleston, and it always kind of had a gig and had an audience or whatever. And it really wasn't until, I really wanted to have a career with a band, but I couldn't afford to bring a band out, and I didn't have that kind of cooperative thing going on. So I was trying to do solo thing, but I didn't really have a million songs, and I didn't have a cool look out in. I didn't really have any idea of what I really wanted to do, And so when Michael came along, just really attracted to like the rock and roll aspect that he was bringing in, and kind of what the musical background that his friends were into. And it wasn't really until we started gigging in Charleston together to pay our rent. And he was so jaded on the music industry, and we were just kind of like two middle fingers in the air, like, we don't need it. We got all the fucking work we need. And we left town, hit the road, took whatever, and kind of a snotty attitude about the infrastructure that would eventually come to, like, you know, our band infrastructure is solid. That's awesome record label. Like, our team is the opposite of what scarred, you know, musicians in the early 2000s. So I literally wasn't doing much of anything, you know, all talent and charm, no ambition. And Michael is very much like a workhorse with discipline. So we kind of, you know, far be it from me to say that Michael raised me, but, you know, I'm not ambitious, and it worked out really good for me. My career was significantly advanced.
It's worth noting that, like, we were both kind of trying just before, you know, post my band and label experience. I had made a record called The Winner that was a solo thing, and I was like, oh yeah, this is I'm gonna like give it a go with this. And Cary had just made a record called Lions and Lambs, and it was like picking up a little bit of heat. She had a song in that show True Blood, and there was like, you know, there was some action around that, and we you know, we were newly married, and we were kind of like trying to decide what we were going to do and how we were, you know, how we were going to work, and was I going to go on the road? Were we going to both go on the road separately and just, like, you know?
That sounds like a good idea.
Never see each other, and yeah, so
did you find, Michael, in the same way that Cary Ann felt that maybe you were kind of bringing an aspect of kind of ambition and structure? Were you kind of affected in the opposite way, coming from that very structured environment in New York with a major label and coming down to Charleston and maybe playing in some more, you know, let your hair down type situations?
Totally, yeah. When I moved back, because I had moved to Charleston from Denver with my, you know, original early band, and then we all moved up to New York, and then that's when, you know, the all that happened. So I moved back down to Charleston and kind of just got into the scene that was happening here. I would just, you know, like play any gig with anybody, and just became, you know, it's a really cool music community down here.
Very collaborative, very
collaborative.
sociable.
Like, hey, you want to come play bass, you know, in this band this weekend and make $50, and it'll be fun. And then we'll probably never, you know, the band will break up, and then we'll all go do something else. And it was just like all kinds of random, you know, creative projects, and we would just, you know, it was like a loose and fun time, and we would take any kind of gig, and yeah, it was really like a sweet time in Charleston.
Charleston bars and restaurants don't mind spending money on live music, even though nobody's listening.
Hey man, well, as long as they pay the cover. Once you guys kind of joined forces and began playing together, do either one of you remember a specific moment where you thought to yourself, shit, man, this might work. You know, this might be more than the sum of its parts, more than the sum of what we were doing on our own before. Do you remember a specific moment when you thought that this project was going to be different than earlier efforts?
It did take us by surprise, because we just didn't care. It was like, this is just the thing that we're going to do for fun. And all of a sudden, there was, you know, people were into it. People would, like, cared way more about this thing than they ever cared about the things that we had done previous. And this is the thing. This was like a throwaway, kind of just for fun project, or just to make a little scratch project. We had a weekly gig at this place called the Trusted Palette downtown in Charleston,
Mm-hmm.
and it was starting to just be this event. It was kind of packed.
Yeah, we kind of take it for granted. Like, we had we had a scene going on. And it was like loud folk music. We, stomping, and we played tambourine on the floor, and it was surprisingly like engaging and not quiet and folksy at all. So we were pretty rowdy for a two-piece acoustic. We were acoustic, no drums back then.
Yeah, and it was just sort of there was no rules to it. It was really, it was like we would arrange songs however we could with a couple of different instruments, and more or less thinking that we would be like background bar music or something. But people started showing up, and it started to be like an event in town, and we were shocked by it.
I think my moment came a lot later, because for me, it kind of like, I knew it was going to be more than like, this was going to be our career, when we finally decided to sign a record deal, and put aside our cynicism and engaged in business. And we were in New Orleans. It was a Mardi Gras time, and we're sitting down there, like getting ready to go parade, and we had like a quick business meeting. This is the day. It was Mardi Gras, because our manager is wearing full makeup and like dressed completely as a woman, because we're about to go out. But he just had like conversation with dual tone. And it was like, do you guys want to do this? Do you guys want to sign the papers? And we said, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's engage in professional business.
Mm-hmm.
Let's change our tax status and see what, and like book, like, so we kind of, that was it for me. Like,
that's beautiful. And New Orleans is a great place for that realization, because then you can go get as drunk as possible to celebrate afterwards.
Yeah.
Was there any point, you mentioned that in some ways this project, it almost sounds like it took off because it was something that you weren't putting a lot of expectations into, that you were just doing to kind of follow the creative work. Going forward, now that this has become your profession and your creative life, your financial life, has it been a struggle to kind of retain that amount of playfulness in your creative work, or has that continued to come naturally?
That was a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. We always kind of tried to, to use that as a springboard. And our thing is unconventional, anyways, because it's not a 4-piece band. We have to make things
specific arrangement.
Yeah, we'll arrange things in our own way to create a full sound. And usually somebody's playing drums and like a bass line on a keyboard, and somebody else is playing guitar and maybe like a organ pad on on like a pedal on the floor. And but there's really no, what I like is that there's no rules. Like we can arrange things however we want to, or we can just play one guitar and 2 voices. I think there's a lot of freedom with there's a freedom with our setup.
Mm-hmm. There's also like the other, like this project, it wasn't that we didn't care about it, or that it was just that one thing that's been interesting about it, and probably really good for us as artists, is when we joined up and made the band, like we both had a lot of ego work. We had to break down our own egocentric investment in our own art and be able to take a different kind of criticism and like work really collaboratively, and also learn like where our talents lie and like what we were best at within the band. And it just took a lot of like unpacking of previous expectations about what it meant to be in a band and what it meant to be a married couple. And And to your point, I think not having huge expectations, like being open to whatever it was that was coming our way was, really important part of the integral spirit of like our band and what we love about music and what keeps us traveling and doing my thing.
That does really feel good. I know what you're talking about there. Once you get a little bit older and you can kind of get your ego out of the way with creative work. It's like when you get in the studio and you don't care if it's your idea, you just care if it's the best idea. Do you think that you guys were able to get there because you are partners, because you're a married couple giving each other creative notes? Or do you think it just happened because you both got, like we all do, a little bit older and a little bit wiser?
I think being married definitely had something to do with the ability to, to communicate in that way.
He can't be like resentful about shit that goes on in the band because you take it home,
Right.
You didn't do my part. You didn't let me have my big moment in the song. I'm not washing dishes anymore.
There's a lot of bands that just never, they don't have to talk about everything. They can go and show up. You can go on for years like that. Well, the poison slowly kills you. But with us, we have kids together. We have to do a whole lot more than be in a band together. So I think that our meta communication has helped us musically, just to be able to dig something out, or just to agree on what the best idea is or whatever.
Music and entertainment can be an absolutely mind-boggling business to find a work-home life balance in. I'm sure that's the case for many jobs, but the rigors of touring and the need for privacy that creative work demands can be especially destabilizing for working parents. I know I've found it to be that way myself, so I can imagine it's even more intense for Cary and Michael, who both work in that domain. Often, the blurred lines between work and home, the stolen moments between playground sessions to scratch out a verse or two, the FaceTime calls back home approximately 5 seconds before you step on stage to deliver a performance, they can leave even the most grounded individual with a feeling of vertigo. And if you live in that dizzying space for long enough, it can almost become an absurdist, dreamlike day-to-day existence. And there's a wonderful poem by Dean Young that touches on that feeling exactly. It's called Romanticism 101. Then I realized I hadn't secured the boat. Then I realized my friend had lied to me. Then I realized my dog was gone no matter how much I called in the rain. All was change. Then I realized I was surrounded by aliens disguised as orthodontists having a convention at the hotel breakfast bar. Then I could see into the life of things, that systems seek only to reproduce the conditions of their own reproduction. If I had to pick between shadows and essences, I'd pick shadows. They're better dancers. They always sing their telegrams. Their old gods do not die. Then I realized the very futility was salvation in this greeny entanglement of breaths. Yeah, as if. Then I realized even when you catch the mechanism, the trick still works. Then I came to in Texas and I realized rockabilly would never go away. Then I realized I'd been drugged. We were all chasing nothing, which left no choice but to intensify the chase. I came to handcuffed and gagged. I came to intubated and packed in some kind of foam. This too is how ash moves through water. And all this time, the side doors unlocked. Then I realized repetition could be an ending. Then I realized repetition could be an ending. I've really noticed with you guys, it seems like on the business end of things, from the outside looking in, it looks like you guys kind of have a vision of what you want to do going forward. I know that you've built out your own studio. You tend to do a lot of work out of there. You've now begun to produce in non-COVID times your own festival in Charleston, High Water Fest. Is that kind of all of a piece? What is your business philosophy these days going forward? Is there a coherent one, or are these just all kind of random points that seem to make more of a plan than there is?
I think that, primarily our business plan is to continue to write and produce our own music. Michael, records all of our records in our home studio, and we've managed to make all of our entire catalog is homemade. And so I think that has to do, our business plan is to keep the overhead low, keep the circle tight, keep outside influence out as much as possible, and just have we have a very closed, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a closed environment, nobody we just make our music and we give it to our camp and they say, hey, great music, and go out and do their job. So I think that that part of our business strategy is really simple arts management. The other stuff, because we're older, because we've grown up, and because you have to own touring is the only way. Touring and publishing are really the only ways for us to earn a living. The diversification, like adding a festival that we curate, or doing, commercial and movie work, all of these things are just kind of ways to, to earn a living in different ways, ultimately, so that we can choose to be on tour when we're 65 and not have to do it.
Right.
That's kind of our next thing, is make the best music we can, and then also make the kind of choices that that can allow us to just continue to do what we want to do. We don't have to expand our brand. We have to grow our company. We just kind of truck along, reasonable expectations, extremely conservative,
just keep it,
rock and roll values.
Yeah.
Keep it overhead low.
No
totally.
fancy restaurants.
Yeah. No, that's really it.
We sign our deals at the fried chicken place.
Yeah. Now, my dad was a contractor for years and a carpenter, and that his refrain to me ever since I started doing this, 10, 12 years ago, I can't get him out of my ear, just always saying, keep it skinny, Joe, keep it skinny, keep it skinny. And that's how, I feel like that's how you stay in the game for a long time, is if you don't have a ton of overhead, if you don't have a ton of obligations, it really helps you get through years. I mean, for example, like this last year, where I think we're going to see a lot of people who had a lot of overhead have a tough time recovering from this last year.
I've been thinking about that, Joe, a lot. Bands like us, we've been able to hold it down and kind of coast, comparatively with the rest of the world, and a certain amount of stability. I think the bigger bands that even the bands that have 18 crew members like that, I can't imagine how devastating this has been. It's been nice. We've always been able to turn on a dime. That's our other ethos, is just be prepared for anything and be able to adapt quickly to whatever is required.
Totally. What does your home studio look like? And you can feel free to get relatively nerdy on this, because most of our listenership are songwriters or songwriter adjacent. How did you build your studio? What kind of hardware did you build it around? What were your goals when you were getting to put together a room like that?
We had always had, I guess, we moved into this house in 2014, bought a house, and then it had a decent sized room in it, and I had just a little bit of gear, like a couple of mics, like Apollo.
I have to keep it wet.
I had a retro compressor, and just like a little handful of things. And we were doing a lot of recording on the road as well. But so in 2015 we had a baby, and we were instantly like, oh my God, we can't go on like this. We have to figure out a different situation, because she wasn't the best sleeper, and then when she was sleeping was the only time that we could get anything done, and so it doesn't really work to go and play, rock music while the baby's sleeping.
Right.
And so we built, had the idea for this place in our backyard, and it's like a rectangle with, our idea was that the place needs to be like a utilitarian room, just like a rectangle, preferably with a pitch ceiling, and like a bathroom and a little kitchenette thing, and like a place where somebody could sleep if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically what it is. It's this utilitarian rectangle made out of plywood with a bunch of sound baffling in there, and it's got a lofted area on each side where we can put like storage, or
we'll do green screen video content work.
Yeah, and then we've just kind of been like amassing a little bit of gear, tickety boo, as we go.
Tell him what you got, baby. Tell him what you got there.
A mic here, a mic there.
He's so modest.
Some lights and some knobs. We're not really in the tape world. I'd like to do that sometime, but it's just like, for us, we're in the, the only way to make money really is to go out and grind it. And there's not really, music is free now, which is kind of like, it hurts in a way, because you just, you're like throwing your soul at it while you're making your record and writing your song and like putting it all together, and it's just like so personal. And then you just like, just like out on the internet, and you get paid to go play the barbecue fest and to sell your t-shirts, So
I want to admit, like, that is all true, but at the end of the day, like, the music, people are consuming it like with pleasure and love. Like, if they would have bought the record, they would have bought it one time.
I don't mean to discount that.
Sure, I know. I just kind of was like, it's when it goes out on the internet, it's not just like nobody cares about the music, obviously, because that's why they come to see the show. But it can feel a little bit like, my big art is the record. I suck live. Have you seen? I'm so tired and I don't want to be here today. The record, you guys.
Yeah, well, I think
it's just different.
We're kind of from the Goldilocks generation, where we can remember when you put a record out and you would get a bunch of money at first. You know what I mean? Because people would buy it. And now it is really hard to make the paradigm shift in your brain to be like, yeah, I make less money at first, but I put out a record last year that's still earning me money right now, when it totally wouldn't have been if it had just been sold, completely pre-sale wise physically. But it really is hard to get out of that old mentality. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just, it's like people consume it differently now, and we're just like the back in my day people,
Right.
But I mean, we have, like, back in the studio, we've gotten so much. It was the best decision that we've ever made, best investment by far that we've ever made, because we can just go out there and get some stuff done. Or if like this year, it's been a lot of events where you film yourself and you send it in, and it's part of a
live stream
or cyber event.
Yeah.
Does that make me sound old?
Cyber. Put it out so Threaten this person in space.
That is so good. You mentioned earlier that, one of the reasons it's been good to work like this is obviously you guys are parents. And I don't know how you found it. For me, I've found my wife is a teacher. So when I'm off the road, I'm the one primarily watching the kids. And I've found because I have to work in much tighter spaces, like you know how it goes, you find 30 minutes, an hour here or there to work. It's really affected my creative process because it makes me make decisions, yes or no, on something a lot faster because I don't have time really to dither. Have you guys found a similar sort of clarity from working with kids, or what differences have you noticed as parents?
Yes.
Yeah, you're like really, really speaking to us right now.
You feel so seen.
Because that was the hardest thing. Even, we have 2 kids now, and when we just had the one, it was like, how are we going to possibly get anything done? And so we came up with, this schedule. We had therapy, all kinds of, it's like, so yes, we like work in windows.
Shifts,
we take shifts, we divide and conquer. We we take, I don't know, we keep hours, and it keeps our brains, it keeps us sane, and also it keeps us productive. And I feel like we for the past few years, we bring this up in every interview, and now looking back on it, I'm like, nah, I probably wasn't the right time to, these people don't care about us, about what our family schedule is, what our schedule on the refrigerator is.
Sure.
But I'm glad that you brought it up, and thank you for that, because it's a huge part of how we operate. And I feel like you kind of have to save up all of your, you save up your creative laser beam, and then you can, if you have the 2 hours or whatever, it's definitely more focused. You're driven by the fact that you know that you don't have all day to sit around and hem and haw about a decision. You just like, that sounds like a guitar. That sounds like
yes,
a good guitar tone. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I just think about how much time I spent in my 20s in Austin, Texas as some idiot hungover hipster in a bar thinking, at 10 o'clock in the morning, thinking that I was really getting a lot done. And I swear to God, I get more done now than I ever did back then. And I'm still watching kids,
Yeah. We're like working smarter.
That middle-age efficiency, baby.
Yeah. Man, so what are your guys' plans to, as COVID it looks like, God willing, that this thing is kind of winding down, or at least going to be heading into a different phase very soon here. Are you guys going to hit the road pretty hard and tour, or are you going to, is it going to be, more concentrated weekend bursts with the kids, or how do you play that?
Well, first of all, how exciting that there's hope on the horizon. God knows, like, we were the first ones to lay off, and we'll be the last ones to come back. Yep. Congratulations to all of the people and our roadies and our crew folks and musicians that finally get to go back to bringing some joy to this godforsaken world. We're going to dip our toe in, and we have some safe, socially distanced, outdoorsy kind of things in the spring. And then what, Michael?
We've got like clusters of things kind of throughout the summer, and
cautious spring.
Yeah, and I think there's like a few festivals that are coming back in the summertime, and then who knows? Fingers crossed. We have plans to tour in the fall. I think all of the, I think that's just dependent on the climate of the business, and but it does seem like there's reason to be hopeful, and so we're just kind of gonna go with that.
Yeah, we'll always choose to act in the name of safety. I mean, at this point, it'd be stupid to have worked this hard and stayed out for so long just to go back too early and make a bunch of people sick. So we won't be doing anything like that.
Totally.
But we are super, super happy to that there's any chance that music is going to be able to come back.
Are your kids at an age now where they, stand side stage and watch you guys play, or come on the road and watch what you guys are doing at all? Or do you kind of keep them separate from that?
They're 2 and 5, and they've both been, we tour on a bus mostly when we can, and we bring everybody. We bring the kids and we bring a nanny, and it's great. Mm-hmm. They they've kind of grown up on the bus.
That said, they have little schedules that they do not do. So far, they're in bed by 7:00 at night, and we usually are on stage at 8:30 or 9. So, but I'm really looking forward to that time, when they're 12 and 9 and.
Sometimes they'll be, if we're at a festival, like, they were playing during the daytime, they'll come out and hang out.
They don't think we're cool or anything. No. They don't care.
But they love it's awesome being on the road with them, and also just like all that, it's hurry up and wait, as everybody who's in this industry knows. You drive forever and you get there, and then you hurry up and then you sit around forever, and that's when we get to go. We go do stuff with our kids. We go to a museum, or we go
take them swimming.
Yeah.
Man, I think that's the way to go. I really got my kids on a schedule too. I got a 4-year-old son, and I made the mistake right before COVID started. I was like, listen, have him stay up late and come to a local show at a club. And being in a nightclub for him, a kid that goes to bed at 7 p.m. every night, he was so creeped out by the whole experience, I think that he hasn't recovered from it still a year later. So maybe he had the right instincts, and we have the wrong instincts about being in a nightclub every night. Who knows?
Yeah, he's probably the pure of heart now.
Yeah, what's wrong with all these people, or why are they acting funny?
Yeah, well, I think kids are really confused when they're in an adult situation where adults aren't kind of focused on the kids, but they're focused on one another. And I think kids get a little freaked out when that's the sitch.
Yeah.
I didn't really thought about it, but you're exactly right. I remember being at the swimming pool with my grandmother and all her sisters, and they'd had too many beers, and I was really uncomfortable. And I said, Grandma, everybody's had too many beers in the pool. She said, well, if you don't like it, you can go back in the house. And I was like, these grown-ups are not looking after us. They so kicked me out of the pool.
Oh man, even at that age, you're like, yeah, these adults had one job when they're not doing it. Well, guys, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Like I said, I've known your music for many years because my wife turned me on to your music, Cary, early on, and then I saw you guys play when you were just playing the Cactus Cafe in Austin many years ago. Loved it then, and so I'm a huge fan. Thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having us, man. Nice talking to you.
Great. Take it easy.
See you out there on the road before long.
I hope so. All right, y'all. Peace. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. Shovels and Rope's latest album is entitled Busted Juice Box Volume 3, available everywhere music is sold or streamed. If before we meet again you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.